Steve, could you talk about what the Select Committee on China is and what the committee aims to achieve?
It's a new development in the sense that there hasn't been a select committee on the Chinese Communist Party before. And the chairman of the select committee, Congressman Mike Gallagher, used those words with intention. It's important to try to make clear to audiences at home and abroad that the Chinese Communist Party is the enemy of the Chinese people and also an adversary to the American way of life. That it is a challenge, not just in terms of human rights and other issues inside of China, and also not just in terms of what it does in the Asia Pacific and internationally, but that there are domestic policy and homeland challenges here in America that need to be addressed. That for far too long, China policy has been the purview of the State Department, Defense Department, the national security apparatus. But there's a lot of domestic issues whose time have come, and the public is now engaged.
You mentioned timing and that this is a new initiative. Steve, why now?
I think the COVID pandemic really brought home to the American people and a lot of people around the world that when you have a government like the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Republic, they don't really care about human dignity. They don't care about quality control. They don't care about honesty, integrity, and transparency. And the fact that regardless of what anyone's theory or evidence is about the precise actions that created and unleashed that COVID-19 virus, we know for a fact that it came out of China and that it was a deliberate government decision to allow international travel out of China, knowingly letting the virus out into the world, and then lying to international bodies and other counterpart governments about what had happened and what the precise knowledge of the virus was. It became a political weapon. And that, I think, is the core of what the Select Committee is looking at. From the beginning, the Communist Party of China did what it always does and is only really capable of doing, and that is engaging in political warfare. It used the virus as a domestic and international political weapon. And it, I think, has gone very, very far in that regard. And Americans, now that they feel like they are in a post-pandemic environment, want accountability, and they have seen other actions taken by China in the meantime, whether it was the genocide against the Uyghurs taking front stage, or the crushing of freedom in Hong Kong and taking the front stage, the threats against Taiwan that were very, very prominent in former Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, and then also this spy balloon incident and the fentanyl crisis in the United States. The list goes on. And so the Select Committee is cross-jurisdictional. In other words, it doesn't just do foreign affairs, just do trade, just do homeland security. It crosses over those stovepipes. It doesn't legislate, but it helps frame and dive deep into these issues to help give momentum to the Congress to deliver real policy that hopefully the Senate will consider and pass, and someday a White House would sign into law.
You mentioned a lot of items and details of how the threat from the Chinese Communist Party is looming and increasing. Steve, can you talk a bit about how TikTok is a threat to U.S. national security?
Well, it's not just a threat to U.S. national security. I think it's a threat to the Taiwan public, the Japan public, and any other group that deigns to think for itself and has a way of life that is at odds with what the Chinese communist model is. And basically, I see the Communist Party engaged in a cultural revolution 2.0, maybe short of traditional military conflict, using technology, economics, and any other means to exert pressure and influence. And basically, with that preamble, what TikTok represents is a vast data mining and profiling capability, but it's also married together with very advanced science-based psychological warfare and manipulation capabilities. This begins with hardware itself. It goes into social media generally. But if you have a device to which you are profoundly addicted because you get haptic or feelings that you can respond to when notifications come, and that these notifications disrupt your deeper thinking or any kind of consistent work patterns, that you seek refuge from normal life to have an escape in these social media platforms. It seems innocuous that you would have dancing or pet videos or cooking videos, what have you. But what also is happening without your consent and maybe even your knowledge is you are breaking normal patterns of interaction in your family, in your work, in your thinking. You're also getting manipulated. They learn more about how to make you agitated. There was an expose on Facebook that showed how their artificial intelligence was designed to try to sow division and anger because it would increase engagement on the platform. But imagine if you're the Chinese Communist Party, you can use that same technology to sow division, doubt, dissent, disruption inside your enemy political systems and societies. So they could sow all of that inside Taiwan's democratic public or within America's democratic public. And so it's much, much more than just data security is national security. There's this deeper psychological weapon that is embedded in this. And if we are going to allow our publics to be subjected to that, they should make informed consent that that's what they're doing. And I just don't think anything with that level of intrusion into the human mind and our societal behavioral networks should be allowed if it has ties to the Communist Party of China, which is using these technologies to enhance control and human rights abuses and to weaken the free world.
Steve, there seems to be some criticism as to the ban that this would curtail freedom. How do you feel this can be balanced, as you mentioned, the threat and how it poses a threat and false narrative to the free world?
I just don't believe this is an issue of free speech. Anyone is able to create these kinds of platforms. If we wanted to have free speech, are we going to allow the Communist Party of China to control all communications inside Taiwan? After 9/11, were we going to allow Al Qaeda or other kind of extremists to have free reign on very, very addictive and intrusive technology platforms in our education systems and our societies? We're going to allow our government employees and organizations to have technology that has ties to these evil organizations that seek to do us very real harm? Of course not. And so just like you can't have free trade with unfree people, you can't engage in free speech on platforms that are controlled by these unfree entities. And that's why I think that it's completely legitimate to look at them as a target of exclusion and banning.